Hello everyone and welcome to another video. So today I wanted to have a quick discussion on standing desks. Specifically, this is the Fezibo L-shaped triple motor standing desk. And as the name implies, it allows you to transition from a sitting position to a standing position at the push of a button. So what I wanted to talk about today is just unboxing this desk. We'll show you how to assemble it, and we'll talk about a little bit about some of the logistics of how to get this array of 9 monitors spread out across 2 computers on the desk. So if that sounds like fun, why don't we go ahead and roll back the clock and talk a little bit about ordering and assembling the desk. So I've used standing desk in the past, and in fact a few years ago I purchased a 2-legged manual crank standing desk that I actually installed in the back of my camper/adventure van. Now I've used this to convert between a dining table and a bed configuration in the van. While this has worked great for a van, I've actually noticed that it's actually a little bit wobbly. Now, given that I want to install a lot of monitors and computing equipment on my home/work desk, this basically led me away from this manual 2-legged design to an electric 3-legged L-shaped standing desk. So these are sometimes also referred to as corner desks, and I found that there's actually quite a few different choices, as you can probably imagine. They seem to kind of fall into 2 categories. You get sort of the cheaper versions that are around maybe $500 to $600, and then you get these other ones which are anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500 to $1,600. So again, there's a large range. I'm not entirely sure what the differences are, but basically what I ended up with after doing a fair bit of research is I ended up going with a Fezibo triple motor reversible L-shaped standing desk. So this is the one that I ended up going with, and in fact I ended up getting this configuration. It's a right-handed configuration, and it's 63 inches by 48 inches. So basically this short dimension is 48 inches and then the long dimension is 63 inches, and this is the color configuration that I also went with. Now what's interesting is I'm showing you this website about 2 weeks after I ordered the desk myself. In fact, let me show you what it actually came out to on my end. So this was my order, and actually if you notice, 2 weeks ago this thing was like significantly cheaper. So I only paid about $470 for this desk, and in fact on the Fezibo website, if you use the coupon code WELCOME, that knocks off another 5%. So really this was actually pretty darn, in my mind, pretty reasonable. So this was about 400 and I don't know, 50-ish, something like that, dollars for a electric 3-legged corner desk. Now again, this was the model that I went with. Fezibo makes a couple other models, so notice this is again this L-shaped 3-legged version. They have another one here, and I don't know what the real, there's a little bit of difference. See, I can build this to basically be a very similar bore desk, and it seems a little bit more expensive. And in fact, you could actually, I was very interested in this natural bamboo instead of particle board, just because I kind of dislike particle board. We'll see that in a second. But for example, you look at this bamboo version in that same size, now we're up to $750, and I don't know, I just really couldn't stomach that much of a delta increase in price just to get a bamboo top as opposed to a particle board top. So I basically went with the version that was about $450 instead of $750. So again, this is the desk that I ended up going with. All right, here's the box, and as you can see, it's pretty large. I mean, just to give you a rough idea, let me see, this is like about 39 inches that way by 30 inches by about 9 inches. So yeah, a non-trivial box size for sure. And in fact, the thing that's actually a little bit more concerning about it, maybe I don't know if concerning is the right description, but the net weight of this thing, look at this, it's over 100, it's almost 107 pounds it says. So this whole thing, I mean, I believe it. I tried to drag this thing in myself from the front porch inside, and I could barely do it. There's no way I'm going to get this thing upstairs all by myself. In fact, I think I'm going to try to just unpack it here and take up each piece little by little. And you can even see, yeah, this isn't so great that the box is just so big and so heavy. I mean, the one FedEx guy came and dropped off. I'm actually not surprised that there's some damage on the box, but as you can see, nothing super special about the box. It's just enormous, and there you can see this is the triple motor L-shaped electric desk. And oh, actually, I don't know why I should have just set it right there. There's the measurements of the box right there. So it's pretty large and giant. So let's open it up and see what's inside. All right, so let's open it up and let's see what we've got. Now, I'm going to take all these parts out and bring them up and lay them out so we can see. But the one thing I was a little bit interested about was the fact that, yeah, this looks like actually everything. I mean, it looks like it's got the legs. This is probably the tabletop. And as you can see, there's only one single giant box. I know on the website, the Fezibo website, it did mention that some of these tables come in 2 boxes and they might arrive in separate shipments, but I'm hoping, I'm going to cross my fingers that everything is here in this one shipment. So let's go ahead and take all this out and I'll lay it out upstairs so we can see what's actually contained. All right, so I got everything unpacked and moved upstairs and unwrapped. Maybe that's the first thing to mention. I inspected this, and even though, as you saw earlier, the box was pretty damaged, this thing was really packaged up quite nicely. In fact, here's the mountain of packaging. As you can see, you know, they were all pretty much individually wrapped and then encased in this foam shells, so everything was very well protected. Even like, for example, these particle board pieces of the tabletop, they all came with these corner protectors on pretty much all the corners. I guess we can kind of take those off now. We're not going to need them, but that was kind of nice. So I was actually quite impressed that everything was packaged nicely and seemed to have gotten through the shipping process no problem. So now what we've got to do is come check out the instruction manual. So they've got their nice pictorial, you know, IKEA style assembly instructions, and this is probably going to take a little while to get the table assembled. So let's go ahead and basically just follow the instructions and see if we can turn this pile of parts into a standing desk. So the build was actually fairly easy. They supplied pretty much all the fasteners you need, and they even actually included a few extras in case you lost one or two. In addition, you only really need a Phillips screwdriver and an Allen wrench to put the entire table together, and they even supplied the wrench. Now, that being said, the wrench that they did supply was this tiny little kind of cheesy thing that's actually hard to apply any real torque to, so I would recommend upgrading and using one of your own or a T-handle or something like that to make your life a little easier. Overall, it took me about an hour to put the whole thing together by myself, and I really didn't encounter any issues. I guess I wasn't technically all by myself. You definitely want someone to help you at the very end when you need to flip the table over. The only thing I really noticed during the construction was the inconsistency between the frame and the tabletop. And what I mean by that is that the frame is this extremely sturdy, seemingly well-built piece of machinery that I think would withstand a bomb blast, whereas the tabletop is this thin, cheap particle board that you attach to the frame using these tiny little wood screws. The only nice thing about this, I guess, is the fact that the tabletop should be really easy to remove and actually replace if I decide to upgrade in the future. Alright, so I think I've got it mostly put together. One issue I did want to point out, I guess I was a little premature mentioning that the packaging was excellent, because I did find one place where it was damaged, and you can see right here, this corner seemed to have gotten smashed a little bit and broken, and again, I don't know what you can really expect. This is kind of cheaper particle board, so I think this kind of stuff is inevitable. Luckily, I think this is on the back edge where hopefully I don't think you're going to see it much, but otherwise, I think it's pretty darn good. It just didn't come through the shipping unscathed. All right, well, let's see if we can live with that. All right, so we've got the physical build down. The next thing we need to do is initialize the legs. So let's take off this little warning sticker so we can see what the display looks like. Okay, and now we can go ahead and plug him into the wall. So I'm going to grab the power, plug him into the wall. And then, aha, there we go. We get some LEDs showing up, so that's good. So to do the initialization procedure, I think you're going to want to read the instruction manual. And what it does is it tells us to push the up and down at the same time for at least 3 seconds. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, push. 1, 2, 3. And now, yep, the table should go down and then come back up a little bit. I think that's what it just did. It went down to the lowest position, and then it should rebound for a couple of millimeters up and then stop. So it's done. Now I'm going to let go, Okay, so I think the initialization should be complete now. All right, so now the initialization is done, I think we should be able to just kind of push this up button and it should raise up. So here we go, let's try it out. Aha, look at that, there it goes. It's nice and smooth and pretty darn quick, look at that. Cool, and I don't know if you can read the LED here, but the display, I believe, is reading out the table height in inches. So for example, right now it says 40, and if we measure from the ground to the top of the table, that's pretty darn close. I think that's, yeah, within 3/4 of an inch. So, yeah, this is looking good. All right, so now that we've got this moving up and down properly, let's go ahead and set the levels for some of these presets. So I've got my chair here. I think this is set the way I'd like it. So let's run this down to the low position, and I'm gonna store this as position number 1. So let me see, it's probably, I think my last desk was around 29 inches. So something like, you know, yeah, this feels pretty good. Oh, here, 28.5, okay. So this looks pretty good. So I think all you gotta do is run the desk to where you want it. And then if I read the instructions closely, all you gotta do is click this S, and then immediately after clicking S, click the number that you want to store it into. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So let's go ahead and say S1. Okay, so that's theoretically position 1. Now let's run it up to the standing height, and we'll do the same thing to get position 2. So let's run this guy up, and I'll stand up. Let's see. Something like this feel a little bit. Let's go a little bit more. Yeah. How does that feel? If you got a keyboard here, yeah, this looks pretty good. Maybe a skosh up. Yeah, because I like to stand up. Okay, so let's go up a little more here. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Okay. Let's do this, maybe a skosh touchdown. Let's go down to 41. Okay, 41. Okay, so now, same thing, let's go ahead and click S, and then 2. Okay, so theoretically, those are now stored. So now let's see if it'll go down to position 1. Let me click on the 1. Aha, look at that, it's going down. And I think, again, what do we store this at? 29.5 or something like that? Or 28.5, I guess it's 28.5. Like that, yep, that's perfect. Perfect. Okay, and now let's try the up. So I'll click 2. And this is actually what I'm glad it does. This has a 1 click. I've seen other videos where it made it look like you have to push and hold that button that you're trying to go to the preset to, and this is much better, where you can just click it and walk away. So now it's up. Yeah, this is perfect. So again, if I want to now go down low, I'm just going to click 1, let it go, hands free, and then it's going up and down. Okay. This is looking pretty great. Let's go ahead and see if we can get some monitors set up on this guy. And actually, before we throw on any monitors, it might be helpful to actually come underneath and take a look at what the bottom of the desk looks like. So again, you've got obviously your controls up and down, and then we've got this little tray that they include. I think that's for some cable management. That's kind of helpful. Let's see. Oh, there's also this other sort of mini tray. I think this might be good for like pens or pencils or things like that. We'll see if I might actually end up removing that. But anyway, underneath, let's take a look. You can kind of see some of the details. So obviously you've got the leg and sort of the motors, and you see they've got these cables that connect that you kind of have to run through, and they will come back to this sort of control box right here. So all 3 of the legs have sort of these, let me see if you can see it. I don't know, it's kind of difficult. Yeah, right there. All have data cables to communicate with the control box, like such. You know, here's the last, whoop, that's a control panel. Here's the other leg. Yeah, and then the control panel, this control unit has a pretty much a standard IEC power cable. Let me see if I can trace this back, and it's pretty darn long, the one they include with it. Obviously, to run and connect to the wall. That's going to allow it enough slack when it goes up and down. So yeah, that's what the underside of the table looks like. As you can see, there is some fair amount of extra real estate, for example, here, and then let me come around this leg and you can kind of see in the back. Back here, I'll probably end up doing something to have some under the desk cable management in a second, but I guess we're going to see that later once we start mounting all of our monitors and cables. So anyway, that's what the underneath of the desk sort of looks like. All right, so one issue I wanted to talk about was related to that cheap particle board construction of the tabletop. So as we saw earlier, it had already damaged itself just by, basically, I think during transportation, it got bumped and something and it broke. Now, I'm trying to mount these monitors in a kind of 2-row configuration on this desk. If you're interested in more about this build, I've got a completely separate video talking about how I made these double-decker set of monitor rows. But anyway, long story short, what I'm doing is I'm using a combination of, standard commercial off-the-shelf monitor stands and some of these custom stands that I built, which require you to C-clamp it to the tabletop. This is a very similar fastening system to how a lot of monitor stands work, where they basically just have a screw that you turn, and the screw effectively acts like a C-clamp and basically sandwiches the monitor stand on the tabletop. Now, the thing that I'm concerned about with this cheap particle board tabletop is the fact that there's going to be a lot of stress at the point where the C-clamp is applied. So there's going to be a large stress concentration, and as we saw, this particle board is cheap, and I don't know about you, but I kind of hate particle board from a structural integrity perspective, just because it doesn't handle stress concentrations very well. And especially if this desk is going to be moving up and down a lot with some motion, I actually want to spread that stress out a bunch. So what I'm going to use is some pieces of 3/4 inch plywood underneath to act as basically a giant washer, so I can use that to sandwich the pieces together, and it should hopefully work a lot better and spread out that force over the particle board over a larger area, so hopefully it will last a little bit longer. All right, so I've got my second set of monitors in the upper row set up, and as you can see though, one thing that I'm a little worried about is they're quite tall, and the shape of this room is a little odd. As you can see, the walls on the side slant downwards. So actually, as you're moving into the upward standing configuration, the top of this monitor gets pretty close to the wall. So in fact, what we should probably do now is we're going to set the upper stroke limit of the table so that, if some kid comes in here and starts playing around with this, the table will not extend past that limit. So what we're going to do is let's go ahead and run this up until we get it to the location where we want it. So let me move this up. Okay, that's getting pretty close. We can go a little more, I think. Okay, something like that. Anything higher than that is going to start contacting. So here we go, 41. Okay, so to set the limit, luckily they've got nice instructions on that. I think I need to just push and hold S, and then push and hold 3. So let's go ahead and push and hold, and then push and hold. I'm holding S and 3 now for about 3 seconds. There, and the L shows up. So I believe I let them now go, and the L should be the upper locked limit. So let's go ahead and run it down. Okay, now I'm going to push and hold this up, and we're going to see if we ram the stop here at 41. So here we go, up. There, perfect. Look, I'm still holding the button down, so I'm going to be some kid that comes in here and is playing with the table, and it's held down, and aha, great. No contact. So we've got it set, so the upper limit is ready to go. All right, so let's do the same thing for the lower stroke limit. So in this case, I've got a chair, and if I run this guy down, you can see that it gets a little bit close to the chair, so I don't want it to actually get stuck on the arm. So let's go ahead and do that. So let me go ahead and adjust this. Let me bring this up, and let's bring this down to about the lower limit that we want. I don't know, something like that. How about, yeah, 28, which actually I believe is the lower limit anyway, but whatever. Let's go ahead and let me show you how to set the lower limit. So it's just the same as the upper limit. I'm going to push and hold S, and then I'm going to push and hold 1. So push and hold S, push and hold 1, 2, 3, and then there, lower limit. See, it's a underscore L underscore. So that says the lower limit is set. I'm going to let go, and that should be set. So now let's just double check again. I think this is going to basically be the lower limit anyway, but just to illustrate that you can set a lower limit at a different level if you like. But there we go. No contact with the chair. So I think we've got the upper and the lower stroke limits locked out now. All right, and maybe what we should show is, they have this, we just saw, we set the upper stroke limit, we set the bottom stroke limit. You can actually unlock this if you need to. And then also there's another setting here for adjusting the anti-clamping sensitivity of the gyroscope. I have no idea what that means, but I just thought, for the interest of completeness, I'll show you that there apparently is some other setting you can do related to a gyroscope somehow.
All right, so we're starting to get everything set up. I've got monitors, I've got keyboards and mice on the desk, and as you can kind of see, it's actually a little bit cramped in this configuration. If I put the keyboard here, I'm actually quite close to the monitor, and as you can see, the desktop is getting a little bit cluttered. Long story short, this just doesn't have as much real estate as my old desk. So one thing that I'm going to do to actually increase the amount of desk surface area is I went ahead and cut myself a piece of plywood. I stained it to try to make it match as best as I could the color of the desk. And what I then did is I 3D printed some of these clips, these H clips. So all these H clips do, as you can kind of see, is they clip on to the piece of wood, and I even cut out some notches on the piece of wood so that by the time you install this H clip onto the wood, it should be flush. This edge should be completely flush. And then what I can do is I'm going to take this piece, and now this should just clip right in to the desk. If I can maneuver this properly. Come on, this might take a little finagling. I might need to do this offline and get this on. But what this should do, oh, there we go. There we go. There it is, right? So there, that is going to add a whole lot more real estate. So I'm just going to screw these H clips in, and now we're going to have a lot more real estate so that I can put the keyboard somewhere back here. That looks good. Now, now my water bottle is interfering. So again, in the theme of 3D printing stuff and getting more real estate, I also 3D printed a cup holder. So this cup holder can now just sort of, same thing, clip right in here. I'll screw it in, and now my water bottle should hopefully be able to just sit there on the desk. And then lastly, I don't know if you can see over here, but I've got this subwoofer over here on this side of the desk, and it is actually hanging off the edge of the desk. So again, the desk is just a little short. I just needed like another 2-3 inches extended. So again, I 3D printed more parts, and this should now also similarly just sort of flip under here, and I'll screw that in, and there we go. Now this is working nicely. So again, I'm going to actually leave links to all of these 3D printed parts in case you want to download them and add them to your desk as well. So yeah, that should get us a little more space. So let me go ahead and get these things attached. All right, so I've got the second row of monitors set up for my work laptop here. So now it's time to start working on my home personal computer setup. So there's the computer there, and the plan is I'd like to hang 2 monitors up on top and then one down here leaning against the CPU tower. So the one down on the bottom is this guy right here. It's this curved LG kind of ultra wide monitor. So what makes it interesting is when it's this low to the ground, I actually want it to recline backwards a little bit and lean against the tower just to make the viewing angle a little bit more optimal. So what I did was I actually 3D printed this shim. I'll show you here. So it's basically just a shim to basically get the angle that I want. At the same time, it is curved to match the geometry of the mirror. So I'm just going to try to position everything properly. Then I'll screw it in, and then yeah, I should hopefully have 1 monitor on the bottom and then number 2 and number 3 up top. So that's how we're going to do it. And again, the thing that also makes me a little bit nervous about this second double decker setup is I had to extend this monitor stand, again using that same technique we talked about earlier. I'm basically just building these boxes out of 3/4 inch plywood, but the amount of force that is going to be and weight that's going to be on this is definitely non-trivial, and I actually needed to move it pretty far off the edge of the desk. So actually, if you see here, the desk ends right there, and so I actually had to extend this out. This box has to extend out by, you know, a good 6 inches, just so that I'm not going to have this monitor conflict with this monitor. So again, the geometry is a little bit challenging, and like I said, this desktop is made out of this cheesy particle board, so I'm also being forced to come down here, and I'm going to try to C-clamp this guy actually to one of these structural metal beams to hopefully help a little bit with the load distribution. Again, I've even got a second backup C-clamp, which is sandwiched with my kind of giant washer technique made out of a big piece of plywood. So this is transferring the load into the particle board. So I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that it's going to hold, especially when I start moving up and down with this, you know, significant amount of weight. So that's the game plan. So let's go ahead and see if we can get this thing set up. All right, so I think we've got everything finally all set up. All the monitors are going. So over here I've got my work machine. This laptop is driving 5 external displays and 1 laptop screen for a total of 6 displays on this side. And then my personal computer is over on this side where I've got 1 giant sort of widescreen ultra high def monitor down here, and then it's driving 2 up top as well. So there we go. Total of 9 displays spread out across 2 computers. As you can see, the real estate on the desk gets used up quite quickly. So that extra piece that we made is really critical, right? So you need that there so that I can have 1 keyboard and mouse driving the work setup, and then you have enough room over here for a keyboard, mouse. I've also got a space mouse here for some 3D CAD work, but that gives it just about enough room to hold all of these monitors. So again, I think this is working out okay. The particle board, I was able to also clamp on a microphone for doing some, audio work on this side. And then as we talked about earlier, I've got 3D printed water bottle holders and something to hold the subwoofer as well. Another interesting thing that I ended up doing was I ended up 3D printing another little hook right here to hold kind of a towel. So when you're in the middle of lunch and you, whoopsies, that falls off sometimes a little bit, but when you're in the middle of lunch, you can just kind of grab something right there and that keeps it off the table. But as you can see, there's not a lot of real estate left on the desk, but it's working out quite well. In fact, why don't we raise this up and I'll show you how well this works. And I'll make a note that the only connections that we've got to the wall are, I've got 1 wired Ethernet line for the desktop computer right here, just because it doesn't have a wireless card. And then there are 2 power cables back there that are connected to 120 volt AC for power. So other than that, everything is pretty darn self-contained. So let's do this. I'll raise it up, and I don't think we listened. I want to show you that this desk is actually very, very quiet. So I'm going to push this button, and we're going to listen to it go up, and I'll just be quiet. Okay, ready? So here I'm going to push the button in 3, 2. Great. So you hear that? It's pretty quiet. And now we are in a standing configuration. So that works a little bit better. So it's much higher, easier to stand. And in fact, let me get this chair out of the way and let's take a look underneath now that we're in the up configuration. And I can show you what the bottom cable management with the desk looks like. All right. So in terms of management and storage, I guess maybe one other thing I should mention. This actually, I was actually surprised. This thing worked out quite well. So this is this little, pencil holder that they include with the desk. So that is actually pretty useful. I ended up mounting it right next to the control panel. Okay, so now I think we can go underneath. I can show you some of the cable management. And it's not as bad as it could have been. In fact, let me see if I can grab a light and maybe make this a little bit easier to see. All right, I don't know if that's any easier. Okay. So there was that one single tray, this tray over here that they provide with the underside for mounting underneath the desk to hold everything. So you can see I've got multiple power strips connected to everything. Boy, what is this? I've got 9 monitors, a laptop, a subwoofer, a desktop. It's probably at least 12 or 13 different plugs of 120 volt AC sources that need to get plugged in. So it's kind of a mess, but surprisingly everything seemed to fit in here. So that's the power cables, the power bricks for the laptop, all that kind of stuff sort of fits in there. But you can kind of see some of it is spilling out. But otherwise, what I was able to actually manage and do is, remember we had all these C clamps that are basically clamping the laptop, clamping the monitors and their stands. So I was able to run a lot of the cabling through and just use them as a bit of a cable management. So you can kind of see that there are a ton of cables just running back all over the place, everywhere. So despite that though, it actually works out quite well, and you can kind of see there's not a lot going on underneath, and nothing seems to conflict or pinch, and I've been running this for now a good long time. Nothing has ever caused any real issues, so pretty happy with that. Again, we can look at some of these clearances. It's pretty close to the wall, but I think if you're careful with how you manage your cables, it doesn't actually conflict when you're going up or down. So, overall, this whole setup I think has been working quite well. So maybe what I'll do is let's do one more thing. Let me just scooch this back. Let me see if I can put this on a tripod actually, just so we can get a nice steady view of it. Hold on a second. Sorry, this is going to be a little bit of a hassle while I try to arrange everything. Let me see. Actually, you know what? I'm going to zoom this even further out. And then let's go ahead and put the desk down, and then you'll be able to see it move and we can listen to it. Okay? So let me mount this on a tripod. There we go. Now let's come over here. Let's move the desk down, and we can listen to it one last time. So 3, 2. And there you go. And now we're back to a sitting configuration. So this has been working great. So actually, one thing I forgot to mention is this is probably too many monitors for this desk, in the sense that if you look on the edge, right, these two monitors, especially this one up top, sticks out a fair ways past the end of the desk. In fact, I think you get a better view of this if I walk over here to this side, and you get a better idea of what the problem is. The problem is, if you're walking around here, especially if the desk is in standing configuration, this overhang, it's super easy to walk into and crash into and basically hit the side of these monitors. And as you can imagine, that's a bad idea, especially when everything is kind of hooked into the particle board. Like, I didn't want anyone crashing into these, so I actually had to go and I tried to make these orange caution tape pattern, so hopefully people will realize that there's something sticking out at about eye level, and when they're walking past the desk they won't crash into it. So again, minor issue. Again, this is probably more than the designers of the desk intended. So I think this is about the maximum that you're going to be able to fit on this desk, is a setup like this. All right, so there you have it. This is the Fezibo L-shaped triple motor standing desk. I've had this now for about 6-7 months, and again, I use it extensively every single day. That being said, though, I mostly use it in the sitting configuration I discovered. I thought when I first got this that I would be moving it up and down all the time, every day, multiple times a day, getting some standing time in, getting some sitting time in, but to be perfectly honest, probably 95% of the time I'm down in a sitting configuration and I just leave it there all day. So take it for what you will, right? Standing desks, I think they work great when you've got them up. They work great when you're sitting down. You can be pretty versatile with it. I like having the option. I'm just not sure if I did this again, if it's worth the expended money, time, effort to get the sit-stand configuration. Now, that being said, if you do want to stand, I absolutely can recommend this electric mechanism, because I can guarantee you if this was a hand crank, I would not do it at all. In fact, at work, I have a hand crank standing desk, so you can go up and down just like this. I have used it probably 2 times in my entire career. I did it once when I first got there just to see if it worked, and then one other time for giggles, and otherwise, it is just way too much effort and time to sit there and crank for a few hundred times to get the thing up and down. So the electric stand sit mechanism is definitely the way to go if you think you're going to be using it quite a lot. Like I said, I've maybe done maybe about 100 iterations up and down and never had a problem. So this desk has been working great for me. That being said, as you saw, it didn't work great right out of the box. You need a couple of modifications like this extra part here. The particle board is pretty thin and cheap, so I would recommend doing something like the wooden washers to spread out the load for any of these extensive monitors. But if you are just going to have 1 or 2 monitors on top, sitting on the top of the desk, this is probably going to be great. So, With that being said, I think this is probably a great spot to leave it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if so, I also hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. If you just scroll a little ways down and click on this subscribe button, it really helps me continue making these videos. And remember, the new videos come out every Monday, so I hope I'll be able to catch you at a future discussion and we can all learn something new together. So until then, I think I'll sign off. Talk to you later. Bye.